Good afternoon. I can clearly see that things must be very busy outside. That's why we have such thin attendance, but those who are here, welcome. I'm Shailendra Yashwant. I work with Climate Action Network South Asia, which is a network of over 250 civil society organizations from 8 countries of South Asia. But today we are hosting our partner Switch Asia, which is a program funded by European Union, and it's been active since 2007, and it seeks to promote sustainable consumption and production and supporting the transition of countries to low-carbon, resource-efficient, and circular economies. We have a stellar panel. We have 2 ministers who are actually busy with some presidency meetings out there, and they will be joining us soon. But I'm going to invite the 2 experts with us on stage right now to start us off, and as the ministers arrive, they will join us. I'm going to actually call on my friend and colleague René van Berkel, who's a senior expert on sustainable development and circular economy practices with over 35 years of experience in developing and implementing initiatives focused on inclusive and sustainable industrialization, particularly across Asia and Pacific region. So without much ado, I'll let the experts speak, and then I'll come back to you for further discussions.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and I do speak on behalf of the Switch Asia program as senior expert on circular economy, but I'm also the co-convener of the ASEAN Circular Economy Business Alliance, so we can also discuss this. I would basically like to frame my remarks among 3 points, basically the science, the opportunity, and some action. So we are clearly staring at the challenge and increasingly pressing the emissions gap as the climate goes from warming to boiling. Greenhouse gas emissions are not coming down at the speed and scale required to stay within the Paris goal of limiting climate change to 1.5 degrees. If we disaggregate the emissions, not just by the type of gas, but by contributing activities, the expanding use of natural material resources stands out as a fundamental root cause. The International Resource Panel found earlier this year that extraction and processing of material resources contributes 60% to climate emissions. Materials use has more than tripled over the past 50 years and continues to grow by 2.3% annually. Materials productivity, so the efficiency of using materials, has basically remained stagnant, only growing at 0.7% annually over the 50-year period. And that is a meager number compared to the growth in labor productivity, energy productivity, and greenhouse gas productivity. This trend, of course, needs to be bent. We need to decouple, and decouple means then decoupling the economy whilst reducing resource use and pollution, as well as improving people's well-being beyond material goods. Let me then get to the opportunities. Circular economy is the pathway for sustainable consumption and production and climate action, as was also established in the Pact for the Future, which was agreed by world leaders at the September 2024 Summit of the Future. We have, though, a challenge that circular economy means different things to different people, and this hampers coordination, consideration, and implementation, and feeds also skepticism. Switch Asia is promoting the view that circular economy covers all resources, so materials, energy, water, land, and nature, to use these efficiently, keep them in circulation, and transition to renewables. If I put it in short, first, recover and recycle perpetually. Secondly, relentlessly practice efficiency in the use of all resources. And thirdly, maximize the utilization of renewable materials and energy. This circular economy approach is indeed an opportunity for business development and innovation whilst delivering climate benefits. Let me illustrate with a few examples from Asia. Wege in Indonesia implements modular building, which means that the entire building can be disassembled, transported, and reassembled for another use. Using factory-controlled construction, the weight of the building can be reduced by up to a factor 5, and subsequently foundations can be reduced. So are the greenhouse gas emissions avoided that would have otherwise come with the production of cement, concrete, and steel. Another example, Husk Ventures in Cambodia turns rice husk into biochar with triple climate benefits. Biochar sequesters carbon in the soil, It improves the efficiency of fertilizer use, which limits then the nitrous oxide emissions and avoids rice husk from rotting away, thus limiting methane emissions. Cancri in India produces nanocarbon materials from coconut shells for use in lithium-ion batteries. This increases storage capacity by up to 125%, meaning that less materials are needed for energy storage, and electric vehicles can be lighter and have greater range. It also helps alleviating concerns on critical minerals for the energy transition. And these are just a few examples. For those interested, we would have many more examples from Asia that are coming forward. I come to the point of action. Materials used drives the greenhouse gas emissions. So in light of the climate urgency, ambitious climate action is incomplete without a prominent role for resource efficiency and circular economy. Concerted action is warranted to capture this climate opportunity. This does go beyond the traditional climate policy options through business innovation policies that develop and deliver circular products and services. Doing this in the upcoming NDC 3.0 will be the news our future climate urgently needs, whilst also aiding to clean up pollution and waste, to protect nature and biodiversity, and to drive productivity, innovation and growth of the economies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rennie. You really rushed through that. We had some time, and it's extremely interesting, some of the stuff. So I might come back to you with some questions, but while we also wait, I just want to say that we are expecting the Honorable Minister of, Vice Minister of Ecology, Environment and Natural Resources of Kazakhstan to join us, and the Minister of Environment from Pakistan to join us. That they're just busy in some other things, and they should presidency meetings, and they should be coming into the room. But meanwhile, may I invite Mr. Ranga Palawala. He's also a key expert with huge experience both in climate change policy making and sustainable development, in circular economy, and the works around Switch Asia. So I'm going to ask Ranga to explain to us further how we could actually bring sustainable consumption and production into climate ambition. Thank you, Ranga.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this press briefing. We all know that the COP is particularly important into two aspects. One is we are trying to advancing the Paris Agreement and achieving the Paris Agreement objectives. We should conclude the global stocktake process in this, the COP, as well as provide guidance to the countries to updating their next NDC cycle, popularly known as NDC 3.0. And during the GST process, we have heard one single message from all the stakeholders, the scientific community, the policymakers, the countries, the citizens, that we are not doing sufficiently to meet the temperature goals as well as the adaptation targets that we set to make this planet a livable place. So we have seen the IPCC, the report saying that we have a narrow pathway available to reach the 1.5 temperature target, as well as we have seen there's a huge emission gap that we need to bridge. At the same time, we have seen the adaptation requirement is exponentially increasing. So these are common things. So that means the conclusion is likely to be in the global stocktake is that we need to capitalize on all the possible options to make sure that we do adequate amount, adequate numbers, adequate actions for climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resilience building. So based on what Renee mentioned, we see the linkage between the resource use and the resource efficiency and climate change has not getting sufficient attention in the process of policy making as well as setting climate ambition in the countries. So what we are urging is that provide adequate attention to this important scientifically proven fact that we need to unearth a little bit more the relationship between the material and the climate change and try to capitalize on all the opportunities we have. We all know the nationally determined contributions, the building block of Paris Agreement has been agreed to provide the countries with an opportunity to mainstream climate ambition, climate action with their national priorities, national sustainable development priorities. So we see a huge potential from various aspects the countries can capitalize on, linking the material use efficiency, circular economy into their climate ambition. So NDC 3.0, as well as some countries are also moving into low emission long-term development strategies, LT-LEDs, and those two options are giving a golden opportunity to the countries to see and use this linkage to get more ambitious targets out of this. And as Rene mentioned, there's a huge link between the resource, the material use, and greenhouse gas emissions. But at the same time, when we are working in across 40 plus countries in the Asia-Pacific region, what we have seen is that there's a huge link with the adaptation and resilience building too. Because if you look at all the adaptation actions in the countries, in the NDCs, the former generation of the NDCs, most of the adaptation actions required material resources. It could be construction, the buildings, infrastructure, water, even make sure that the industries and the businesses and livelihoods are resilient. And all these things need a lot of material which has not been accounted adequately. So therefore we have finite amount of natural resources available, and definitely if we want to achieve this horrendous climate ambition, we need to make sure that the available limited resources are being used effectively, efficiently, with minimum amount of wastage. And that's why we need to maintain the sufficient focus on resource use efficiency, circularity, and sustainable consumption and production. My last point is that we all know that this COP is very important in terms of the climate finance perspective. We are talking about NCQG. We request sufficient finance need to be flow to achieve this high level of climate ambition. And we all know the public finance and the private investments are not sufficient to meet those targets. But what we see, as Dr. Rene Van Berkel mentioned, there are business cases that if you have higher material use efficiency, there's a lot of savings, and there's a business case for the private sector. So to mobilize private capital, mobilize the private investments, again, circular economy provides a massive opportunity. So unlocking the finance from the private sector, we should definitely consider this neglected aspect within the climate process, that is the material resource use efficiency, the process. So again, our demand is NDC 3.0 provides a golden opportunity to the countries to consider this neglected big opportunity. And I think we need to give this the big opportunity, and we request all the stakeholders as well as countries to work together and unearth this golden opportunity by looking at the nexus between resource use efficiency and climate ambition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ranga. I'm actually circled back to Dr. Rene with one question. Industries are ready. That's what we hear. I mean, we hear that the steel industry, the iron industry, shipping industry. What besides saving, efficiency means more profits as well. Besides climate ambition, why should more industries invest in circular economy and SCP practices, according to you?
We did some analysis of some of the business cases, and this was a bit focused on Southeast Asia, but I think it's a similar story elsewhere, that businesses can basically look at it from a perspective, from 3 different perspectives. As one is the cost savings, which is immediately there, the business opportunity. So being agile on business. So if you be efficient with materials and energy, you pay less on your resource bill. So that is there. And agility also means looking at new applications for your existing core competencies. Then the other one is the kind of the resilience argument. So the climate vulnerability is clearly there. So water is less accessible, less predictable. Energy prices are less predictable. So being more efficient in this and being more prepared, you are also better prepared for that. And then the third argument is more on the argument of being prepared for the future readiness. So there's clearly businesses around which are seeing that not just from the climate argument, but from the circularity argument, that's sectors like fast fashion or plastics. There is no future for the business as usual. The business as usual is business of the past, and the leading companies are seeing that we need to start to pivot new approaches there. So I think that is really the issue, and the element has also been that when we talk about climate action, ambitious climate action for industry, we typically go to the hard-to-abate sectors. But we might overlook the opportunities which are there in all the manufacturing sectors. So whether it's textiles, leathers, or plastics, or food processing, there is small opportunities, and we basically cannot afford to lose any opportunity. So if we the news is also that this is a good business opportunity. So if we focus more on the entrepreneurship, in industry development, innovation, then we can unlock climate benefits, not necessarily via the traditional climate instruments or climate finance, but through another way, and almost take climate as a co-benefit.
Thank you, thank you. Ranga, before I open the floor, just since Rennie also mentioned fast fashion and plastics, etc., in South Asia, in the Asia-Pacific region, how would we engage with this concept with the medium and small manufacturing enterprises, which is a large part of Asia's manufacturing processes? Thank you.
I think let's look at the flip side for the small and medium enterprises. I think the biggest issue they have facing with climate change is that to make sure that the businesses and the business models are resilient and they can face the challenges, the current as well as projected challenges of climate change. So for businesses to be resilient, one aspect is their business case, basically the bottom line, the profits, the sustainability of business in terms of the financial aspects. So irrespective of the size, the financial benefit of material use efficiency is there. So that means in one aspect, of course, they are becoming resilient from the financial side. Second one is that even the small and medium enterprises, the business impacts on the climate change is not only limiting to their business territory. It goes beyond upstream and downstream in the value chain, the suppliers to consumers. So we see this is affecting, if the suppliers are affecting with less. Let's take the fashion. If the cotton suppliers are affected, the textile manufacturers will be affected. So the wastage minimization means that they enhance their level of resilience, they enhance their financial resilience. So it has a significant impact. The collective consciousness about the value chain is important there, because for different resources, different materials, there are overlapping, interconnected value chains. So collectively, the impact is big. That's why we need to consider that.
I could see you getting excited with that question, so please.
I think for SMEs, the small and medium-sized enterprise, which is basically more than 90% of the businesses in basically every country in Asia and the Pacific, it could be up to 95%. So really the issue is a lack of awareness on what is the right solutions and a lack of orientation on this. So with focused efforts, and we've seen that from our work in South Asia and so on, we can kind of come to more customized solutions for groups of enterprise, and then look at upscaling this. So the kind of standardizing, so we take the risk out for the MSME entrepreneurs, and once we standardize, we can also go for lower cost prices, so then also the suppliers can come down with the price, and then there's the risk is out, and then finance and technology can flow. And this is not for high-end technologies, but just think about, I'd like to take the example of, consider how many ceiling fans are running everywhere. So if we just bring those down, the energy efficiency of ceiling fans by 60 or 70%, which is quite possible with energy efficient ceiling fans, and then we think about the millions of fans which are running around the world, and these are opportunities like we have also seen with LED lighting, for example. So we cannot just focus on how do we get to net zero carbon, or net zero steel or cement, but how can we progress on also some of the smaller things which also MSMEs are developing and manufacturing.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll open the floor to any questions. I also heard that the presidency meeting is over and our ministers are on their way, but I think we might run out of time, so we could meet them outside. But meanwhile, any questions to Dr. Rene and Mr. Rangapalawala, please.
Thank you. I'm Janet Swim from the United States at Penn State. I'm wondering how and if you engage the behavioral sciences in your work to be thinking about consumer demands, consumer preferences, uses for products, and education of consumers, if there's any way that you are engaging the behavioral sciences.
I think there is, we've spoken more in this session on the production side and the circularity side. And there, behavioral sciences maybe is playing less of a role, but there is also, of course, the sustainable consumption side. So how do we ensure that products are used in a proper way, that we extend the use, and that's also part of the circularity agenda. And I can see, and that's maybe a work that's maybe less emphasized in Switch Asia, but there is work going on how can we apply behavioral sciences to change also sustainable consumption behavior. So that is clearly there. So how can we edit out undesired changes? How can we create facilitators and enablers for sustainable consumption practices and so on? That is maybe not yet so much the focus in circular economy, which is more on how do we get circular products and services in the market in the first place.
Well, I don't know if I want to say, but I can't stand up easily. So it's just also in terms of the consumer demand to the industries, so it's not just the use of it, so the consumers can be influencing the productions by what they want in that process as well. So what I'm hearing is that you are more on the production side, but not on the behavioral science side. But I guess my point is that encourage that connection.
But I think there is also quite a long way between the consumers who are buying a pair of jeans in Europe or Japan and the manufacturers in Bangladesh or in any other place in Asia. And the translation of this consumer demand is still an issue which we have to look at. It's not only consumer behavior then coming to the shop and asking for zero carbon jeans or so, but how we can then translate this back through the supply chain. That's also what Ranga was referring to.
May I add a point there? And we have seen some of the countries where we are working in the Asia Pacific have done their sustainable consumption and production strategies, policies, and action plans. And if you look at carefully their SCP action plans and strategies, it's not only from the production angle, they are looking at the demand as well. And one of the important things that we are looking at, of course, there should be a balance. And when we are looking at, it's a complex problem, but we are looking at the balance, of course, the developing countries has the more opportunities to incorporate the circular economy and sustainable consumption and production aspects into their ambition, and the parts and the consumption aspect. Of course, we need to think in a broader sense. But I do agree there's a link, and the countries have recognized that, and certain aspects have already been included that. That's why we're saying that when we integrate the SCP and circular economy into NDCs, it's quite easy to some of the countries because they have already done this planning and hard working of how to do it. So it's a matter of building on that. Let's take about SDG 12, responsible consumption and production targets of the countries. So countries have put a lot of efforts to articulate and design and strategize and put indicators there. So I think we have that opportunity. So it's ready-made options are there for the countries to take up and integrate into the NDCs. So this is the opportunity we see as of now. Thanks.
Any more questions? Yeah. We just have a minute left, so Arvind, very quickly.
Very quickly. So I'm Arvind and I work in cities. My question is that we debated a lot on industry, where the production comes from, so on and so forth. But how do we look at circular economy of where we live, how we travel, essentially talking from a city's perspective? And how do you think that cities and urbanization will have a role, and does it reflect in the policies that exist right now?
Yeah, I think cities have a role because cities are ultimately, in many cases, are the custodian or the responsible for waste management. And I think that waste management, even though many people are still associating circular economy with recycling, that's not the right way. Recycling is not the circular economy. Recycling is the last resort in circular economy. But we need to create sustainable waste management plans in the cities, and that's an urban agenda. And the challenge is actually that the cost of waste management in many of the places in Asia is just draining the resources of the urban bodies, and it's basically also undermining the ability of cities to invest in the sustainable cities because of having to deal with the waste of today. I think we kicked out.
We're done. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming, and thank you for giving me that extra minute. The minister is outside for those of you who would like to come and talk to her.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for the action. No, I think that will. Well, that's nice. Okay, let's keep it like that.